A new theory suggests gravity is not a fundamental force. A new theory proposes gravity is not a fundamental force but emerges from a quantum electromagnetic interaction, potentially reshaping our view of space-time itself. I like that. That's interesting because I feel like this is right. I feel like it has to do with more electromagnetic interactions and quantum stuff than it does gravity, I think it's not the fundamental. I think it is part of it, but it's not all of it. We'll find out, though, here. A fresh look at gravity challenges long-held assumptions about one of nature's most familiar yet puzzling forces. In a new study, two researchers argue that gravitational attraction is not a basic force at all, but an effect that emerges from deeper quantum processes tied to electromagnetism. If confirmed, the theory could explain mysteries that have long resisted standard models, including the origins of dark matter and energy accelerating the universe's expansion. That's cool. I did a little video on the expansion of the universe and how light is spinning and how the universe is spinning. Go check that out. The work published in the Journal of Physics Communications reimagines gravity not as a force stitched into the fabric of spacetime, but as something that arises from quantum level behavior of ordinary matter. Ruth of the University of Maryland and Andrey's at the Quantum Institute in New York development a framework in which space and time themselves are not fundamental but results from electromagnetic interactions between charged systems like atoms and molecules. I like that. That seems more on the right path, in my opinion. I feel like they're onto something here. Space-time from photon exchanges. The creation of real photon creates the fabric of space-time. By giving rise to the space-time events and their structural connections, namely the emissions event, the absorption event, and the real photon which links these. In short, space-time events along their structural connections emerge from these transactions. They occur when atoms or molecules emit and absorb photons, the particles of light that carry the electromagnetic force. According to the theory, each transaction gives rise to a pair of events in spacetime, effectively stitching together a network of relationships that form what we perceive as space and time. Interesting. That makes sense. The idea builds on an earlier effort to rethink gravity as an emergent phenomenon, an effect that arises from more basic physical processes, seems correct, rather than a force on its own. That makes sense to me. In this picture, the apparent curvature of spacetime described by Einstein's general relativity is not a fundamental feature of the universe, but a large scale resulting of underlying interactions between matter and the electrical magnetic field. It's a web of life, and I think that's what people are missing. I think that's what the ancient people always understood as how everything was interconnected with each other, how it created into what the natives called the grand tapestry, the grand rug, all the fabrics have to twine in with each other to fit in, and it creates this web of life that we know of. It seems correct to me. Transactions continue. Measurements in quantum theory. The fundamental degrees of freedom that underpin the emergent space-time events are bound systems with charged components such as atoms and molecules. These are the emitters and absorbers, and also electromagnetic field, the medium of transactions. From thermodynamics to gravity. One of the most intriguing implications of this approach is the ability to reproduce key predictions of general relativity, including the gravitational pull between massive bodies, without invoking gravity as a distant force. Instead, the researchers apply the principles of thermodynamics, particularly the concept of entropy, to explain why matter attracts other matter. Entropy, which is often described as a measure of disorder, reflects the number of possible microscopic arrangements that give rise to the same large-scale state. In this new framework, the many quantum states of atoms and molecules, along with photons they emit, define the entropy of a system. As mass increases, so does the numbers of the states, enhancing the likelihood of interactions and thus generating the force we interpret as gravity. Objects with mass being composed of transacting components provide fuel for transactions. When we quantify the transactional fuel in terms of the temperature, the possible positions of four masses, the gravitational potential is the result. I'm rethinking dark matter and dark energy. The researchers suggest that entropy-based descriptions naturally accounts for the phenomenon that have long challenged conventional theories. These include the unexplainable motion of stars and galaxies, which led to the idea of invisible dark matter, and the apparent acceleration of the universe's expansion, typically attributed to dark matter, or dark energy, The model predicts quantities that currently are anomalies for the standard theory. Such as the galactic rotation anomalies, dark matter, and the small but non-vanishing value of dark energy, and its recent observed weakening over time. Further astronomical observations may offer a more precise test for the model's predictions in this regard. According to Kastner, there is no need to invoke unknown forms of matter or energy to explain these effects. They arise naturally from the thermodynamic behavior of ordinary matter and its electromagnetic interactions. In sum, our theory is a quantum theory of gravity with appropriate corrections to Einstein's theory, although gravity is not a quantum field in this model, but a natural structural property of the emergent space-time. I see. I like that. I really do. I feel like that fits. I feel like that really is fitting kind of nicely in my mind. I don't know about y'all, but it makes sense to me. It really does. And to the everything, to the religious, to the symbolism, to all of it, it seems like it's a puzzle piece that just kind of slides right nicely in there. Makes sense. But I'm no quantum researcher, so I don't know nothing. Looking ahead, the team is now working to extend the theory further. A major goal is to describe gravitational waves, ripples in space-time detected by observatories like LIGO within this new framework. Instead of being waves in gravitational fields, these signals would result from changes in the motion of mass itself. We are continuing to develop the model, in particular its ability to gain gravitational waves without attributing energy directly to the gravitational field, but rather to its source masses themselves. While many questions remain, the new theory offers an intriguing alternative to the standard view of gravity, one that could eventually help unify our understanding of the universe from its smallest particles to its largest particles, or its largest structures. I think that fits, because I think as above as below. I don't know. It really makes sense, especially with everything we're coming across with all the quantum understanding and the qubits and how they operate. Reality is changing. Space-time is changing, because I feel like it's no longer becoming this magical thing. It's becoming something that we are truly understanding, grasping the concepts. Our little feeble monkey brains are finally making it. We're finally shooting rockets out in space, figuring out quantum, engineering plants and engineering animals. I feel like we're getting close to, becoming a alien species, Once we figure out how to do better for power sources and better for energy sources, I think things will expand quickly. So, I don't know. I find this super interesting. I really do. I love this. I love this. It makes my brain feel good just reading this stuff. So, I don't know. I'll see you all later, okay? Let me know what y'all think. Bye-bye.